Right now, I'm thinking of a character from popular culture. Let's see if you remember them. This character lives an ordinary life holding an ordinary job until their world is unraveled by mysterious forces. Donning a black coat, dual-wielding pistols, and distorting the fabric of time itself, they go on a violent rampage to seek revenge against their enemies. Sound familiar? Oh, no, not that guy. I meant the other character who lives an ordinary life, holding an ordinary job until their world is unraveled by mysterious forces, who dons a black coat, dual-wielding pistols, and distorts the fabric of time itself as they go on a violent rampage to seek revenge against their enemies. That's right, I'm talking about Max Payne, or more specifically, Max Payne's core mechanic, the aforementioned distortion of time itself, bullet time. If you've never played Max Payne, you may be familiar with the mechanic's implementation in other games. But before we get into that, let's roll it back. What exactly is bullet time? Bullet time is a filmmaking technique which, actually, I'll just let these guys explain.
You know what I'm talking about. In all the cool action movies, and I'm talking about the coolest of the cool, it always seems like time slows down in the middle of the action. You know, you can see the bullets flying through the air, the hero dodging in slow motion. Bullet time, that's what they call it. Bullet time.
Like traditional uses of slow motion, bullet time accentuates action and heightens the drama of a scene. Time is stretched, making what would only take an instant play out over seconds. By presenting projectiles as tangible in-scene elements, audiences can both read the action being presented to them and buy into the reality of the movie. The use of bullet time has existed for decades, but it wasn't until 1999 that it was given a name. So where did bullet time come from exactly? Way back in 1878, Edward Muybridge's Horse in Motion was captured with a line of still cameras, each taking a photo once the subject was in shot. These images were then collected and presented in sequence to give the illusion that the horse was galloping in place. In 1967, Speed Racer used the same technique in the context of 2D cell animation, presenting a 2D character frozen in place as the camera rotates around them. In the 1980s and 90s, John Woo's Hong Kong action drama films, like Hard Boiled and The Killer, introduced stylized slow-motion gunfight mayhem to modern cinema. In these heroic bloodshed movies, characters would fly through the air, dual-wielding weapons, shooting at one another. At the time, this style was referred to as gun kata, bullet ballet, or more famously, gun fu. Around the same time, Ivan Hall's 1981 film, Kill and Kill Again, produced a more literal version of what would later become bullet time. All of these elements, with a hefty dose of inspiration from various anime, music videos, and the work of Michael Gondry, were married into a watershed moment for popular culture, the Wachowskis' 1999 film, The Matrix. The film features dual-wielding mayhem, characters flying through space, bullet scenes soaring through the air in slow motion, and a modern reinterpretation of the same process used by Muybridge himself. From a broad range of influences, The Matrix managed to rethink action cinema for the 21st century, and finally coined a singular term to define its most revolutionary element, bullet time. So that explains bullet time in cinema. But how does this apply to Max Payne? Released in 2001, Max Payne brought the concept of bullet time to gaming. Though similar to its cinematic counterpart, the mechanical purpose of the technique was to provide players with a stylish leg up against the competition. In 2001, gamers were still getting used to dual analog controllers with two sticks as you'd find on all modern gaming consoles. Bullet time afforded these players time to think in high-pressure situations, educating and empowering them at the same time. Bullet time in Max Payne can be activated at any point and shifts gameplay to slow motion, giving players an opportunity to survey their environment and take out enemies before they get the chance to attack. With this ability, players could dodge incoming fire while taking the offensive, opening up possibilities for intense close-quarters firefights and surprise attacks. Despite common misconceptions, Max Payne didn't draw its initial influences from The Matrix. Instead, Remedy looked at film noir and Hong Kong action cinema as the project's initial inspiration, directly citing many of the same touchstones that informed the Wachowskis' work. And although Max Payne would include multiple homages to The Matrix, its development and initial reveal predated the film's theatrical release in 1999, a serendipitous example of parallel thought. While the idea of who came first ultimately isn't that important, as both The Matrix and Max Payne helped to revolutionize their own mediums in their own ways, it is interesting to note the similarities between the two pieces of popular culture, as produced through their shared influences. So what happened next? In 2001, Max Payne was a major critical and commercial hit, and went on to spawn 2 sequels and a feature film adaptation. Although it's difficult to directly attribute the design influences of other games to the shoot-dodging anti-hero, ripples of Payne's use of bullet time can still be felt in gaming today. Rebellion's Sniper Elite games and their bullet time glory shots, the VATS system in Fallout, Cyberpunk 2077's Reznikov power-up, The Legend of Zelda's mid-air arrow aiming, the time-bending gunplay of Superhot. I could go on, but we'd be here all day. In 2002, Rockstar Games, the company behind Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto, purchased Max Payne from the creators Remedy. Since then, the bullet time mechanic has shown up in some of their largest games, including in the Red Dead franchise as Deadeye, and in Grand Theft Auto 5 as Michael's area kill ability. Rockstar would even add to the franchise of Max Payne itself by creating a 3rd game in 2012. Bullet time has even re-emerged in Remedy's other releases, most notably in the time-bending Quantum Break. John Woo himself would break into the video game space in 2007 with Stranglehold, a third-person action shooter set in Hong Kong, adapting his own cinematic bullet ballet style to an interactive form, using the mechanical foundations laid out by Max Payne. So, what's the point of all this? By looking at Max Payne and The Matrix, we can better understand bullet time as a mechanic in video games. We get to know its origins, its significance in cinema and in games, and a pretty comprehensive look at how developers manifest their influences as mechanics in games. Through bullet time, we can examine just one example of influence and lineage in video gaming, tracing its story from its origins at the beginning of cinema to its legacy today. We can unpack modern games, drawing lines back to the past, and explore why popular mechanics exist in the way they do. As a game developer myself, looking back allows me to look forward. For example, my skating adventure game Bearings is a combination of Tony Hawk and The Legend of Zelda, drawing thematic, aesthetic, and mechanical inspiration from surf and skate culture, Australian coastal towns, music from a varied collection of artists, and my own personal experiences as a skater. This awareness of our references makes our games and their mechanics rich with personality and purpose, and makes games like Max Payne stand out.
I released my finger from the trigger, and then it was over.